Have you ever felt the world getting just a bit too loud, a bit too demanding, and your very first immediate instinct is to just pull up the drawbridge and lock the gates? Well, you're definitely not alone. It turns out there's actually a really specific structural blueprint to why we do this. So in today's explainer, we're going to dive right into the exact mechanics of emotional withdrawal. We'll examine these invisible walls we build, the hidden burdens that cause us to build them in the first place, and ultimately how we can start to safely step back outside.
Does solitude feel safer than sharing your inner emotional state? For a lot of us, the answer is just an immediate, resounding yes. And validating this is incredibly important because retreating, it's a completely natural human instinct. When you're feeling fragile, the idea of exposing that to someone else can feel, honestly, like walking a tightrope without a net. Solitude, by comparison, feels like solid ground. It gives you this guaranteed, controlled environment where you don't have to manage anyone else's reactions or judgments. But, as we'll see, that safety definitely comes with a hidden cost.
Section 1. The urge to escape. Building the safe room.
Think of this as the construction phase. To truly get this architecture, we have to define the behavior. Emotional withdrawal is simply withdrawing during emotional stress instead of expressing what you feel. And it's absolutely crucial we frame this not as some personal flaw or character defect, but as a specific functional response to stress. When your bandwidth is just maxed out, your internal system shuts down non-essential functions, and sometimes expressing ourselves feels like a non-essential function compared to pure, simple survival. So instead of reaching out for help, all that energy is redirected entirely inward just to keep you upright.
Now, we all have our preferred escape routes when that pressure becomes too much, right? Maybe it's escaping into your imagination, which gives you a predictable world where you write the script. Retreating to sleep is perhaps the ultimate shutdown mechanism. I mean, honestly, who hasn't wanted to just hit snooze on life for a day to process feeling overwhelmed? And seeking quiet isolation is really about physically removing sensory and emotional inputs. When you're overwhelmed, you aren't just hiding, you are actively relocating to a carefully constructed internal environment where you finally have control over the variables.
Section 2. The empathy trap. The hidden weight.
The truly insidious part of this burden is how completely unconscious it is. You may actually absorb the moods and emotions of the people around you without even realizing it. You might walk into a room feeling totally fine, have a quick chat with a stressed colleague or a frustrated partner, and walk out feeling utterly exhausted. You didn't actively decide to take on their stress, but your empathy acts like a giant sponge. And when you're constantly absorbing the emotional static of the world around you, your internal system gets flooded. That is exactly what triggers that overwhelming urge to build the safe room. Think about the mechanics of how that trap actually closes. It's this brutal seesaw effect. Focusing entirely on others' comfort directly causes you to overlook your own emotional needs. The more energy you pour into managing the emotional climate of the people around you, making sure they're okay, keeping the peace, absorbing their anxiety, the less energy you have to monitor your own internal dashboard. You basically become an expert at reading the room, but completely blind to your own state.
Section 3. When hidden stress surfaces, cracks in the foundation.
Now, this is one of the most disorienting cracks in that foundation. You may struggle to clearly identify what you are even feeling at any given moment. Because feelings are processed internally over really long periods of time rather than being expressed in the moment, we totally lose track of our own emotional baseline. Think about it. If you bottle things up and never look at them, eventually the labels fall right off the bottles. There's this heavy, tangled mass of emotion inside you, but if someone asks, hey, what's wrong? You literally might not have the vocabulary to answer them. Your safe room has essentially become a dark room.
And when emotions can't be expressed verbally or directly, well, they're going to find another way out. Buried emotional overwhelm doesn't just magically disappear. It actually forces its way out physically, through unexplainable fatigue, a need to sleep excessively, and pulling away from your social obligations. Your body is literally shouting, I am carrying way too much weight, but it also surfaces indirectly in your mind as generalized anxiety, restlessness, or sudden mood swings. The pressure has to vent somehow. Burying an emotion doesn't kill it, it just forces it to operate in the shadows, where it ends up doing way more structural damage.
Section 4. Healing through awareness. Stepping outside.
Okay, so to break this cycle, we have to make a really fundamental shift. Our old architecture relied heavily on burying emotions in solitude. But that act of avoidance only provides temporary relief, leading to long-term stagnation. The new blueprint? It requires acknowledging emotions directly, which is the practice of awareness. It means looking at those messy, complicated feelings without immediately trying to shove them into the safe room.
It's about being able to say, wow, I am really overwhelmed right now, and that is okay, rather than just disappearing.
I really want to slow down for a second here, because it all comes down to this one core truth. Your growth comes from acknowledging emotions directly, instead of burying them in solitude, allowing healing through awareness rather than avoidance. Look, that safe room served a very real purpose. It kept you safe when you just didn't have the tools to cope. But you cannot grow in a room with no windows. True healing requires the courage to dismantle the walls of avoidance and let the light of awareness actually hit your emotions.
So I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. What is one hidden emotion you can acknowledge directly today, instead of burying it in isolation? You don't have to tear down the entire safe room all at once, not at all. Just start by opening the door a tiny crack. Find one feeling, maybe it's a small frustration, maybe it's some lingering anxiety from the workday, and just name it. Acknowledge it. It is the absolute first step in designing a healthier, much more open, emotional architecture. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the complexities of our world, one idea at a time.